All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Crossing the Streams. How are you?
Yo.
Hey.
It has been a minute since I've been on. We have live music now. We're upping our production values.
We got lots going on. We got a full house today. We have 6 folks. We are, I believe, successfully streaming right now on Fireside. As well, if you are just tuning in, of course, you can enjoy the show in any of the ways across the world. But also, we are streaming on the Fireside app, firesidechat.com, and you can get a copy of that app on your iOS or Apple phone. And here's the cool part: you can come on stage on the Fireside app, and you can actually talk to all of us about one of the shows that we're talking about, or if you want us to suggest one for a future episode, you can do that as well. We have, before we introduce everyone, we always do like to focus on our guests. We have a returning guest. I think you've been here now 100 times. So excited to have you back, John Sullivan, as well.
Hello,
Johnny.
From Boston.
And so it is a tradition to kick off the Crossing the Streams with the Crossing the Streams theme song. So, John, we're going to let you do it, but you only have to do the first verse, and then we'll
I always start
Rosner. We'll kick it over to Rosner.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Here's the story of some lonely fellows who spend way too much time watching the TV. All of them have jobs and friends. Well, not really. Just between you and me.
Take it away, Howard.
They made a live show out of their hobby. Every TV watcher's TV watching dream. Jeff, Ron, Sal, and Bob, and there's Howard. They call it Crossing Streams.
Bob, take it away, man.
And then one day they went live on all the platforms. You could hear the people laugh and shout and scream. I'm in key, by the way. Still can't find another word that rhymes with platform. But man, we cross the streams.
We cross the streams.
We cross the streams.
That's the way
we do it. We cross the
streams. Wow, all right. That was the theme song if you're just tuning in. Thank you, John. That was so wonderful. And welcome, everybody, to Crossing the Streams, the #1 show in the world of TV, movie, binge watching suggestions. We have 6 hosts with you today with 7,000 hours of binge watching experience between them over a lifetime. We are #1 in 17 countries and 62 states. We're pretty excited about that. We've got a guest before we reintroduce all the hosts. We're gonna talk to our guest today, John Sullivan. John, tell everyone who you are and where they can find you.
Sure. So I'm John Sullivan. This is not my 100th time on the show. It's, I think, my 5th. So really excited to be here. Why I'm here, I guess, is I'm the guy behind Depressed Darth, which is the Twitter page. I started it a long time ago, back in like 2010. It's kind of fun. But now it's like every day, get to do things like this. So Depressed Darth on Twitter. I'm on Instagram too. You can find me there. There's so many platforms, it's hard to get out to other ones. So yeah, happy to be here. Depressed Darth, follow me.
Good to have you back. John and I met years ago. We were both Star Wars influencers with Gillette in London at Pinewood Studios. So that was pretty cool. We're just going to go around. I want to introduce all the hosts again. We don't do that enough. Howard is back.
Yeah.
Nice.
Happy to be back.
Welcome back, Howard.
From my non-self-imposed sabbatical. Howard Rosner. I have worked in the world of sports for a long time. My specialty on this show, I'm an Aries. Just mentioned that. My specialty on this show, I really embrace dark comedies. I love comedy, and I am also extremely fluent in music and sports documentaries as well. So yeah, I'm happy to be back with you guys for my weekly socialization
Good to have you back, sir.
When we
Welcome
searched
back,
the
Howard.
world for someone to give amazing recommendations, that world kept pointing back to Howard Rosner. It didn't point as much too, but we brought him along anyway. Bob Phillips.
Bobby. Thanks. Sorry, I had to duck out of frame because I had to put my dog away. I don't know if you heard him panting.
We heard, Bob. There's always a clicking of some sorts coming from.
I'm glad that was a dog.
He's 170 pounds, and he was lifting up the table, and I was pushing his head down. So anyway, good to be here, guys. Yeah, my name's Bob Phillips.
Bob, that's not a dog. That's a bear. You have a bear.
He is a bear.
Yeah,
He is a bear.
Lovely bear.
He's a massive beast.
Lovable bear.
He can guest on the show sometime.
Who would argue with him?
I'm a bear owner.
He doesn't do
I'm
a boxing
comedian
one,
out of
then he's
Detroit.
welcome.
Nice.
And I'm one half of the Sal and Bob show. And Sal is over there. He's
Other
the other
side
half.
of Ron. Other side of Ron.
Well, since you pivoted to Sal. Sal, introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, I am comedian Sal D'Amelio, and I'm the other half of the Sal and Bob show. We're both obviously comedians, always on the road. I loved being on the show. You asked me to be on this show at the very first episode, and I've enjoyed doing it. I kind of tend to watch a lot of documentaries. I'm into sports. I'm into the gangster movies and the mob movies, obviously. Look at the way I look, And I also just had a slice of pepperoni pizza before the show started. So
Hell yes.
Nice.
Attaboy.
Well
I
done.
got to tell you, if I can give a shout out to a corporation, in my my recent diabetes, diagnosis, I'm limiting my carbs. Marco's Pizza, a local Detroit chain, has what they call a pizza bowl, which is everything from a pizza tossed in a bowl with the exception of crust, and it was surprisingly exceptional.
isn't that would be
It
pasta?
took Howard
Isn't
50
that
years
called
to find out
pasta?
what a salad is.
Is there any
No,
dough in it
come
at
on.
all?
No
Is there
dough
any
in it at all. No, it's
Like
no.
cheese, vegetables, small pieces of meat. Yeah,
yeah. It was sort of a pizza salad, I think.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what it was.
Sounds
You
truly
remember
depressing.
Patton Oswalt referred to the KFC famous bowls as a failure
A failure
pile and
bowl.
a shame bowl.
So I don't think Ron got to introduce himself.
Yeah, it's Ron's turn.
I did. Chicks dig me because I rarely wear underwear. Listen, I'm here for the show. Been here since the beginning. And, I tend to focus on foreign films and seemingly films about World War II. I'm not sure why that is. But yeah, glad to be here. Glad to support all of your all shows. And
Thank you.
happy to be here, boys.
Awesome. And I'm Jeff Dwoskin, lover of all shows, sometimes Marvel, sometimes documentaries. We're all eclectic. I think that's what brings us together so well. I'm also the host of Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show, the greatest pop culture podcast in the world.
The greatest.
According to my mom. And
I
And
read
Paul
that.
Provenza. And Paul Provenza.
and Paul Provenza, if you go look on Apple reviews. He loves my show. All right. So that's good and true. So we're great. So what do we do here at Crossing the Streams? We talk about amazing shows. If you're just catching up with us, we have 43 hours of great recommendations for you on YouTube at the Jeff Dwoskin Show channel. And you can start to see them on Fireside as well, starting with this episode. So we got a lot of great stuff. If you want to catch last week's episode, we talked about some good stuff on episode 43. We talked about Three Identical Strangers, which was a documentary that I brought to the table. Sal talked about Dave Chappelle, The Closer. No, you didn't talk. Somebody did.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did. And you did double duty. And you talked about The Many Saints of Newark, the prequel to the sequel to the Sopranos. And we talked about Clickbait, our guest James Healy, and the Fire Festival. Ron talked about the Fire Festival, one of the two documentaries. We talked about the one on Netflix, and both are super cool. This episode, we got some great shows coming up for you. And again, all those on the Fireside app. If you know any of these shows or you want to chime in, just raise your hand and let me know, and I'll bring you on stage. But this episode, we're going to talk about Squid Game again. We talked about it in a previous episode, but none of a guest had brought it up, and none of us had seen it. Ron and I have since seen it, and collectively, I'm sure our minds are somewhat blown. So we needed to go deep into this, so we're gonna cover that one. Depressed Darth, John is gonna cover Star Wars fandom and Rise of Skywalker. I believe he might even try to convince you to like it. And then Bob is gonna cover Macho, the Macho Grande story.
Nice.
Over Macho Grande.
Macho Grande.
Nachos Belgrande.
Nachos Belgrande.
And then Sal's going to talk about Untold Crime and Penalties, one of the Netflix documentaries. And then Howard Rosner is going to talk about Documentary Now, which is a parody documentary. So we got.
I love that. I've seen it. I love that so much.
Okay,
Documentary Now.
We like to keep the conversations kind of fluid. If you're on one of Facebook or YouTube, feel free to comment, and we'll bring your comments on. If you're on the Fireside app, feel free to raise your hand. We're going to talk about Squid Game. We're going to kick off with Squid Game. We got to jump right into it because there's just so much to go. There's so many levels.
It's exactly right, Jeff. There's so many levels to this. First off, has everyone seen it? Everyone?
I
I
have not.
No,
I have
but
not.
honestly, don't worry about spoiling it for me. I can ask the dumb questions.
So, okay, so you know the premise of the show, I'm assuming, yes?
Barely. I've just seen the memes on Twitter, but I haven't
right,
researched further.
very quickly.
I like the memes though.
Very quickly, an organization that seems dark and mysterious selects down and out people, typically in terrible debt or personal circumstances, and puts them in a situation where they can earn millions, or in their case, billions of won, which is the Korean currency.
Okay.
It's about 38 million American.
In exchange for playing a series of games, competing against all these other contestants in a series of games. And it's not giving anything away. I think everyone knows basically that they become hunger games, like games where
Sure.
being eliminated from the game means you're being eliminated from life. And so when I heard about this show, and when it was first reviewed on Crossing the Streams, I hadn't seen it, and I kind of assumed it was going to be a foreign knockoff of Hunger Games. And how wrong I was about this. And Jeff, I'm glad you agree that there are so many levels to this, literally levels to this story and to this show. And the thing, I've now watched it. If you can imagine this, I've watched this 3 times now.
You watched
How
the
many
episode 3 times. So
It's nine episodes. I've watched it 3 times. I watched it twice just for the pure fun of it, and then I watched it a 3rd time to catch all of the Easter eggs and hidden things that you can find on YouTube that help to round out the story. By the way, that is a thing now about stories within stories that can be, with all these reviewers on YouTube now that can point out things that you never noticed the first or even second time. It is amazing how intricate these things are produced.
What was that? I never understood. I never knew about this.
Oh man! Oh, Easter
Marvel
eggs.
movies.
Yeah.
Are big on it.
So listen, the thing that had bothered me after the first time and then the second time when it started creating such a buzz and momentum to it, and keep in mind, guys, this is the fastest, most watched show in Netflix history. It's the biggest show in Asian history. It is the #1 show around the world right now. It's out of Korea. They're already in pre-production for season 2. I mean, this show is a monster. So you have not heard the last of this show. And so I was really stunned by, like, what is it about this show that makes people love it so much? Is it the acting? And the acting, by the way, is superb. You haven't heard of any of the actors. They're all Korean actors, except for there's one episode with some completely unnecessary American actors. But the show itself is all Korean actors. The production values are stellar. They spent a ton of money on this. This was all produced by Netflix itself. Netflix pumped a ton of money into this.
The sets are unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And that's the other thing about it that I think is fascinating. Almost no CGI in the show.
Does it take place in Korea, or is it sort of like a? Yes. It is Korea.
It takes place in Korea, but your question is an excellent one. That if you watch the show, you'll understand why your question is an excellent one, because it turns out that that Squid Game is not exclusively a Korean thing.
Okay.
So, but the question stands: why is this so compelling? And I think it's because of what Jeff spoke of a moment ago, that this is a very layered story. Certainly the games itself are fascinating to watch, and the way they produced each of these games. If you just watched it just for the games, you would come away feeling this was a valuable watch. If you go a level deeper, or even a couple levels deeper, you'll recognize that this is a parable, a society study of how the poor are at the call of the rich, and the value of human life, and frankly entertainment. So there's that element to it. There is a number of interpersonal stories that I think this show takes a tremendous risks with, and they all somehow pay off. And then lastly, I'm just going to say the plot twists in this thing are fantastic. Like, so fantastic you would have never seen it coming. And it creates one of these situations where you have to rethink the whole show through a new lens once you learn some of the plot twists with this. And that it's like an exercise.
May I ask, is it giving anything away to say, what does it mean? What is Squid Game? Why is it Squid Games?
Yeah. So Squid Game it's two things. It's, first off, that is the sixth and final game, is Squid Game, of the 6 games. But the Squid Game itself is a game in Korean culture where you draw a squid-like figure on a blacktop, like with a circle being the squid's head, then a square, and then a triangle underneath it. It's supposed to represent the shape of a squid. Okay. And the basic objective of the game is to push your adversary out of the squid's body.
Okay.
And it becomes a violent game. I mean, that's the thing they talk about it. That Squid Game played in the playgrounds of Korea is actually quite a violent game, because you're basically wrestling with kids to get them out of the squid.
Like Foursquare.
It's like, yeah, kind of like Foursquare, I guess.
Wow.
Okay.
But it is a very deep story, but it is also super exciting, extremely well produced, acted incredibly. I don't know where they found these actors from. And then the twist, man. The twist is just epic. So
here's one of the things that's interesting about this show is how you watch it. So we originally watched it with English dubbing, okay? And we got about 2 in. I happened to read an article at the same time our friend, Jeff Zonder, was talking about how Erica, his sister, said, no, you got to watch it in Korean with English subtitles. And oh my God, we started watching episode 3 to let them speak Korean, and then it was just English subtitles, and we just read it. It made the show 100 times better. I don't know what or who in Korea thinks Americans talk the way they made the main guy talk. Like with that, they made him like this whiny character you just wanted to slap. And then when you switched it to Korean and with just English, it was like all of a sudden he was a totally different person. He was not this whiny person that the English overdub it. The overdub. Oh, you why are you doing this, Howard? How? Like all frantic, like, and then and Korean, he was all like, we gotta get to the show, you know. And all of a sudden he's like not swap. I mean, like completely. I mean, it was a completely different viewing experience, completely, and way better. And then my cousin, which I haven't verified this, said no, there's 2 versions of the English even subtitles. And so I don't know about that, but but that's one of the debates, is how to actually consume it. And how did you watch it?
There's no debate about it in my mind. You must watch this in Korean with the English subtitles. It changes. I didn't even give it a chance. The dubbing, I watched like 30 seconds of the first episode with English dubbing. It's so bad. It's like laughably bad. So don't do that. Don't make that mistake. I think we've talked about dubbing as a general rule on the show in the past anyway. Never watch with anything dubbed. And, you know, I think the acting is so good that it must be in the original Korean.
Got it.
So
cool.
What's the significance of the cookies? Everybody's talking about the Squid Game cookies.
Yeah. So, and this isn't giving anything away. I don't think it is, Jeff, is it? If I talk about the second game? But one of the games is they they bake these cookies into these tins, like circular tins, and they give you like a needle. And the trick is you have to dig the shape. There's a shape that's dug into the cookie. You have to dig the shape out without breaking the cookie. And if you dig the shape out, it's like a triangle or a circle, and it comes out as a whole triangle or a whole circle, you pass that game. But it's very difficult. These are crumbly these are crumbly things.
And if they break, you're eliminated.
If they break, you're
I
eliminated.
mean, there's a lot of hard.
Carmen's asking a good question.
Yeah,
of you,
so
Ron.
Carmen, it's in the world, the contestants are playing a series of games, but no, it's not like a game show if you were watching Jeopardy or something like that.
And Carmen, no one else sees this. This is the only people that see this are the game runners who can view the game, but the public at large knows nothing about Squid Game.
Yeah. So everyone watch Squid Game, and then you'll insist. I'm sure we'll have to talk about it.
We'll talk about it one more time.
We'll talk about
I'm gonna
it.
come back.
All right, I'm gonna try to watch
One
it.
of those
Yeah.
where we'll just have to keep
gotta
because
check
it's
it
just-
out, Ron.
It's so
I'm gonna check it out. Definitely gonna watch
Good
it.
review.
all right. So let's go and let's get our
Oh,
go to a
okay.
galaxy far, far away.
Oh,
All right. So this is Rise of Skywalker, and John.
Yeah, so I just have a very interesting relationship with this movie. So I because of Depressed Darth, I go and see the movies, the new ones basically, and all the new movies that come out and the shows. I basically see them the second I can, just because I get like crushed with spoilers just from my feed and my mentions, like anywhere when the movies would come out. So I went to see this one like right when it came out, I remember. And I swear to God, I barely saw any of this movie because Depressed Darth, as I was sitting there, I like went to check it. It had gotten suspended by Twitter, which is like, like when that happens in Twitter, it's like you're done. So
Well, just a little more context. He had like I'm rounding. He had 800,000, if not closer to 1 million followers. Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
This was a panic moment. This is how he makes money. And Twitter
like,
just shut him down for a while.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
So I did not watch the movie. The whole time I was on my phone, like writing these appeals, like trying to get in touch with anybody I could to unlock his account. And basically I like did not watch the movie. And so I got suspended. What ended up happening was I was making these music videos. I have a Darth Vader costume. And I was making these like long music videos of just all this footage I had from the Darth Vader costume over the years. But I was putting like very popular songs to it. I don't want to say who it was because their management or whatever has some sort of algorithm that could go into Twitter and find all the music. So, and I would use it for different things. Like it's Friday and there's like a music video with like popular music of him dancing or whatever. So anyways, I got flagged a bunch of times and I got suspended. And this is from December all the way to August. I was just shut out. No explanation. Geez. I thought, it was gone from my life. And I have other Twitter pages. So there's like other things like, and I like ended up creating this backup page and there's the Instagram and stuff, but this was like completely gone. And then I had written to like this music management company to this guy. And I was like, look, I'm really sorry. I'll take it down. And he wrote back this email, like angrily, not angry, but just kind of like, no, we deal with this all the time. Like people are stealing music because it's like the music industry trying to protect, their copyright. And, on the internet, it kind of gets wild. People are using music here, music there. And like, so long story short, I had never seen Rise of Skywalker, like for real. And I have a son now who's getting like really into Star Wars. Like I think Mandalorian has hooked in a lot of people to Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So especially the younger kids. So now he wants to see like all the movies and everything. So we sat and watched Rise of Skywalker. So I've seen it a couple times now. And here's my thing with the new Star Wars movies. Like I understand the criticism that there's like plot problems and blah, blah, blah. But I think you can literally say that about every single Star Wars movie. But like, in the Rise of Skywalker, there's an opening scene where Kylo Ren is basically murdering he murders like 100 of these creatures, and it's just this dark scene in this smoky planet, and he's just going absolutely crazy. And I'm like, that's a great opening scene. So, and like the music is very good, and like the visuals are very good. And yes, there's plot problems, and I get all that, but I also think we're like hitting a place now where it's like almost like cruel to like, immediately hate something. So you can walk out of the theater and be like, you know what, that was pretty cool. I like that part of the movie, blah, blah, blah. And you're sort of processing it. And then you get home and you go online. It's like a million different people are saying it's bad. And then you start getting influence on the movie being bad. So I think much like the prequels, like I think these sequels, like as they age and you start to go back and revisit them, or if they're just on TV, like I'll always watch a prequel movie if it's on TV, even like Attack of the Clones, which is technically arguably the worst of, the Star Wars movies. But I liked Rise of Sky. I just thought it was entertaining. I mean, it's definitely not the best, but like.
Is that the last one?
It's the last one.
I like
so
that.
That's when Rey's in the desert, she becomes a Skywalker. They're trying to tie together all these plot points, and like you get all that. But there were great lightsaber battles. Like some of the visual stuff is really good. Like, some of the battle scenes are really good. And it's like, I think there's this sort of like my son loves it. And, I just sort of view him as kind of like a kid looking at it without all the baggage of like the, pre-Star Wars movies and then like the online commentary and like all that. So I'm not necessarily saying this is like a great movie per se. More so, it's just like, I think they're entertaining, and I think they get a little too much hate because it's almost become cool online to like make fun of stuff, or it becomes a trend almost where it's like, oh,
I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah, and that happens with these series movies, right? And you look at the original three, and you look at them in the scope of what would be today, right?
Right.
If you had seen Star Wars, life-changing at the time, just something we'd never seen before, then, in my opinion, Empire, which was the best of the original three by far, and then Jedi, which wasn't,
Right.
it was
like
just
the
the Ewoks
Ewoks are ridiculous, right?
The story was kind of rehashed to a certain. No, it's a great movie. I'm just saying,
right.
If that movie had come out, if those three movies had come out in the atmosphere we have today with Reddit subgroups and, fan pages, Jedi would have been ripped to shreds when it came out because it was just a different time, as opposed to what we had to do, which was wait a few years and then stand in line to see it.
Yeah.
And then we're just excited because of the scope of it.
This is my take on it. This is my hot take. I agree fundamentally with everything you just said, but I think the element that is missing that I think is detrimental. One is, for some reason, the internet has given fans somehow they think they have a right to actually have an opinion, right? Mm-hmm. We grew up when you handed us a movie, we watched the movie. We either liked the movie or we didn't like the movie. We moved on with our lives.
Right.
The problem, so Star Wars, Empire, and then Return of the Jedi come out within 6 years, a reasonable every couple of years, which was a normal pace for movies, right? When you add all of a sudden decades to things and people can talk about them and there's just too much to get in your head, there's just no way you can win. There's no way you can win. And people have created ideas and concepts and stories when decades have passed because you've almost given up the right to do it because you're like, oh, we'll go back. Don't go back. To me, like going back is just as bad as that stupid Home Alone trailer they just released. The shot remake of the original. I don't want Macaulay Culkin in a Home Alone remake. I don't want a Home Alone remake.
Yeah.
Let's make a movie where some kid gets left somewhere and make it a new movie. It doesn't literally have to be the same exact movie that we've all seen, especially Disney. I'm not paying all that money for you just to reboot a movie. Okay, do something new. Anyway, so the other problem with Star Wars is they're too caught up, and now they're going to fall back into this problem, but they're too caught up in everything having to do with Skywalkers. Everything has to do with the Skywalker. They could have easily just gone in a completely different direction, right? They shown with the Mandalorian that is great. And then what did they do with the Mandalorian? They screwed it up and brought Luke Skywalker in. So
I thought that was great.
It was great. Hang on. I don't mean screwed it up like it was bad and it wasn't a cool moment. But now they've kind of put a little nail in their foot.
I think I know what you mean.
They're stuck now. They're now tied back into Skywalker. Before it was this whole its own thing, right? And so it's a universe. It's an entire universe. Galaxy that they can actually explore.
The multiverse.
And they need to just do that. And so by going and making 7, 8, 9 just the continuation, and then yes, they had a problem because Carrie Fisher unfortunately died, and so that changed things. But I think time just creates unnecessary expectations. When they made Solo, horrible. I hate movies where they go backwards. The prequels, I hate when movies go backwards because then you have to make it fit in. You have to make it fit in with the present. And if you didn't actually think about that in the beginning, then it's just Jeff,
I agree because I saw
come on.
I totally agree. I saw a brand new episode of Star Trek today with William Shatner. That was today, baby. That was an updated episode. All right. It was a great new episode, brand new.
Except all of the red shirts made it back. I noticed. That's unfortunate.
That was the best Photoshop I think I ever saw.
The best meme going around today was the one with the picture of the guy from Roddy McDowell from Planet of the Apes, and said we should all dress like this when he lands back on Earth. Fantastic.
All right. Well, let's continue. This has been a great discussion so far, covering Squid Game and Rise of Skywalker. Great job, John. We're going to move into Macho, the Hector Camacho story.
Macho, yeah. I want to hear about this.
Yeah. Everybody, even a casual boxing fan remembers the name Hector Macho Camacho. He was quite a character. He was a Puerto Rican kid that moved to New York City. And during his youth, won everything there was to win in the amateur ranks, Golden Gloves, New York City championships, and turned pro in 1980 and fought for 30 years. Think about that. That is an insane number to take punches to your head for 3 decades. But there's a reason for that, and that happens to a lot of boxers.
Like my marriage.
There you go.
My first one. Sorry, the first one. let me say that again. The first one.
The first one. Yeah, say it loud so the one behind you doesn't come up and whack you with a shoe.
Yeah.
So that's a common thing for fighters, to leave the game too late. But it was because Hector, like so many of those before and after him, did not take care of his money, even though he won, $100 million in the ring, something like that. I mean, he was the prototypical kid out of the projects, and he was a very interesting cat because he won 3 titles coming out of circumstances that would have broken most people. No father around. He had a loving mother, but lived in an apartment where there were 7 other people, and people coming and going all the time. Drugs were rampant. There was every reason for him to fold up his tent and just be another statistic, right? But he was insanely talented. He was one of the fastest boxers that ever lived, and he compiled a record. He won the junior lightweight title, the lightweight title, and then junior welterweight. That's a feat in itself to win 3 titles in 3 different weight classes. But he did it in such a way that he infuriated people because he did it all his way. He was such a little showman, and he was so funny and so odd. He'd always come into the ring. He would come in a gladiator outfit, with full helmet and the brush and then he'd have a Scottish kilt on, and for some reason, and he would just befuddle these other boxers that just could not deal with the speed and his pure talent. He was 37-0 at one point, which is outrageous That's an outrageous number for somebody in the lighter weight classes, because usually someone comes along in the, after you use, if you're a good fighter, they get you up to 15, 18, 20 wins and no losses. And then they angle for a fight. And then if you're going to win a title, you do it at 20-0, 22-0. Well, he won it sooner than that. And he defended his title and just shellacked people. But he wasn't the kind of guy that hurt people. He wasn't a knockout artist. He was just so blazingly fast. He would just pop, pop, pop and rattle off 10 punches to your head, and then he'd be gone and people couldn't touch him. And I remember, being a huge fight fan, I loved and hated this kid because he was infuriating. He was just infuriating, because guys that were huge punchers, you thought, okay, someone's going to come in and shut Hector's mouth tonight. I can't stand him flapping his gums anymore. And 37 times they went up, and 37 times they went back with their tail between their legs because he utterly embarrassed them. Well, things start to get a little rough for him. He had a fight with one of his countrymen, a guy named Edwin Mazzario. And Edwin was a huge puncher. And I think this was his 37th fight. It was the first time that Hector got knocked around a little bit. He bled. He actually got hurt. And he said later on in his career that it changed him. It just changed him inside. He didn't feel invincible anymore. Didn't feel like he could do the things he needed to do to survive. So he started screwing around. He wasn't training. And then a loss, right? And then a couple more wins, and then another loss, and then the drugs and the booze and all the kind of stuff you hear in the tragic prototypical boxing story. Well, Hector was eventually he was murdered in Puerto Rico about, I want to say 9 years ago. Yeah, it's just hilarious.
Hold on, Bob. Hold on for 1 second.
Oh, we got a lightsaber back there.
Kylo Ren made an appearance.
Son is
Everyone's laughing.
Kylo Ren. I was like, what's going on?
Sorry.
I'm thinking, what the hell is so funny, Howard? I'm talking about the death.
I know.
Then I look up and see the lights.
Yeah, it was perfect timing. It was right when you said murdered for some reason.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to take John's head off.
And wiping out the younglings. So the poor guy was he fell on hard times. He lost all his money, as happens a lot in that game. There was nobody to counsel him. There was no, when Don King was through with him, he kicked him to the curb, as Don King does. And he wound up going back and forth from Puerto Rico and selling drugs and doing drugs. And he was shot in the head on a street in Puerto Rico, and they found like 9 pounds of cocaine in the car. But it was a slow descent for him. It was and I felt really bad for him, because he was one of these guys that, like I said, he infuriated me as a boxer sometimes, because he was always yapping, always bah, 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 and nobody could touch him. But then after a while, you started to appreciate what a huge talent it was. I mean, he knocked out Sugar Ray Leonard. He knocked him out for good. He beat Roberto Duran twice, and later in Roberto's career. He beat a lot of good fighters. He beat legends, but he didn't get the credit he deserved, because, like I said, he was kind of like a mosquito. He annoyed everybody. But you have to. This documentary, what I love about it is that it teaches people, even if they're not into boxing, to look at this guy from the time he was a kid, and then just on sheer raw talent, to catapult himself into being one of the most popular, successful fighters that ever lived. He obviously it ended tragically. But he came from nothing and nowhere, and it was all here. It was just him. And looking back, I admire this guy so much. I truly do.
Cool.
And it was a sad ending, but his career in retrospect is amazing.
Yeah.
So,
sounds good. I'll watch that.
On, Bob?
Say again?
Bob Phillips, what channel is the Macho documentary on?
This was on Showtime.
Is it a documentary or a movie?
It's a documentary, and it came out less than a year ago. I think earlier this year it came out.
Very cool. All right.
Yeah,
we'll definitely check. I will add that to our must-watch list.
Okay.
With that, we're going to move to Sal D'Amelio. He's got one of the Untold. We've told an Untold here before. We did.
Have we? All right.
Alice. So So you got to
Oh, that's right.
Rosner kind of nailed that one pretty hard. So this is Untold Crime and Penalties on Netflix.
This is an
right now.
awesome one.
Sal D'Amelio's going to
Yeah, this I really enjoyed it too.
you saw it also?
I loved it.
Okay, cool. I just kind of stumbled across this, and as soon as I saw like the narrator said this is a story about Jimmy Galante, I like paused it, went and got a pizza, some bottle of wine. I'm like, this is
Good bottle of red.
Get some Chianti.
Gabagool.
just just the guy's name made me. I was hooked, right? So, and sure enough, he portrayed the name. He's a guy that made a lot of money in the garbage business, and a very motivated garbage business. I mean, he started with one truck, then he went to 2 trucks, and they show him go to 4 trucks. Then he's got this huge garbage truck business that goes through like 3 states, New York, Jersey, and Connecticut. Millionaire 50,000 times over, and just a successful garbage guy. And actually has a son named AJ throughout that ordeal, and which is kind of interesting because The Sopranos is based off of a guy that's in that business, and his son Tony Soprano in the show, his son's name is AJ. They're saying that David Chase might have even had some use this guy as for his basis on The Sopranos in a way, although he's not into murdering people and stuff, but just the basis of this guy's kind of reputation. He's very, very, very driven guy, and he has a son that becomes a pretty good hockey player in high school, and sees the movie Mighty Ducks and just becomes a real big fan of the Mighty Ducks movies and big fan of hockey. And it's kind of funny. The old man's got so much money that the old man literally buys his 17-year-old son a hockey team in the UHL, the notch above below the NHL. And it was kind of funny. They showed in the documentary, he's walking into school and everybody's kind of staring at him. And he's like, "What's going on? What are you guys staring at?" And they're like, "You haven't seen the papers?" And he looks at the papers, and it's Jimmy Galante buys son hockey team in Davenport, Connecticut. So this kid's the owner of a hockey team, and they just basically build this kind of like the bad boys of 1989 Pistons, right? They just want them to be fighters, and just they're called the Thrashers. That's the team name.
The Mighty
Thrashers.
Yeah, and this Jimmy Galante's got a ton of money, so he just puts into marketing, and there's a local ice arena, and they fill it up and they're an expansion franchise. And it's kind of funny because the first game of the year, their first game in existence, this Jimmy Galante, like whatever, gets it to the coach and goes, "I want a fight as soon as the puck drops. I want the first fight to happen." And literally literally they show the scene because it's a documentary, and the puck drops, and sure enough, there's a fight going on. So they become these bruisers, and they're not very good. And the bulk of the documentary is about this hockey team, how this 17-year-old kid is running it. But kind of on the backside of it, there's the FBI is investigating this Jimmy Galante for some other stuff that's going on. They're paying some of these players in cash because there's like salary caps. So this Jimmy Galante is just handing guys cash like on the backside to get the better players in the league. Then the NHL goes into a strike in 2004, I believe, or 2005. So the kid, AJ, he's like, "Oh man, I'm going to try to get an NHL player." So they literally just buy Michael Rupp, who was their first kind of goal scorer that came and played with them. And they ended up becoming good. They ended up becoming a good team. And so that part of it's really interesting. And then I won't give away all the way to the end, but they basically, just investigating this guy. And it's kind of interesting because even at the end, Bob, you'll appreciate this. The son, they kind of move away from the Thrashers towards the end, towards the hockey team is kind of done. He just decides to open up a boxing school and opens up a boxing, workout place, a gym, and starts to get into the fight game towards the end. And I won't spoil what happens with Jimmy Galante and his investigation, but I thought it was very, very well done. I thought it was really a really good one. I'd like to hear what you thought of it.
Yeah, so like I have kids playing hockey now, and I played hockey growing up, like nothing too crazy or anything. So I actually I saw a picture and knew one of the kids. He was on my brother's teams growing up.
Oh,
so
wow.
AJ also really liked pro wrestling, which
Yes,
was kind of the
yes.
other part of the story.
Correct.
So he basically put together this team that was like half pro wrestling, half hockey, and like they packed this rink, and it was just like all of a sudden out of nowhere, this was like the best ticket in this like tiny Connecticut town, and it was like the other thing he was doing, which was interesting, was like, let's say you were there with your wife and you were like playing, you know, pro hockey. Your wife would be like on the payroll of the waste management company, so she'd be getting like, because he was getting rid of money and everything. So the wife of like a player was like, oh, she's like a, you know, manager in this.
She's a union delegate.
Yeah. There was a lot of that, a lot of money laundering.
Mixture of like hockey, violence, like organized crime a little bit, like, and then they interview each of the hockey players too, and like guys who were there at the time, and their stories and sort of excerpts from it all, and just how wild it was. Yeah, it's really good. It's not that long either. It's like a pretty quick watch. Like you can get through it. It's not super long.
Yeah, the Untold ones are just like usually one episode, like 90 minutes or so.
Yeah, because it's a series, and this is just one of them. It's
like someone said, we don't have much of a budget or time. Can you?
Yeah, true. And they talked to the commissioner of the hockey league a lot too. He's interviewed a lot in this because he was one of the guys that kind of would penalize them and you know, forfeit their games because they were doing some illegal stuff and the fights that they did. So they interviewed this official as well, and he was kind of good in it too. They have this section in their hockey arena called the 102 section, and that was right behind the visitors bench. And they would put the worst people behind there, just throwing stuff at the players, getting in fights with them and everything. So this commissioner was the commissioner for so many years. They actually, when he got out of the league or something, I think he retired or something, they actually brought him to a game and put him in that section 102, and he watched a Thrashers game from that section. It was kind of cool to see. It was a good documentary. I definitely like it.
There's I think a whole series of Untolds now. There's gonna, I think, be 5 or 6 when it's all said and done. Yeah, they're really similar to the 30 for 30s.
Mostly sports related, right? All sports related?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're all sports related,
Speaking of not sports related,
documentary
now.
Yeah. So Documentary Now was an IFC show. It's on Netflix now. There's 3 seasons. It is a show that was created by Seth Meyers, Bill Hader, and Fred Armisen, who collectively are 3 people that I absolutely love and find absolutely hysterical. Bill Hader is one of the funniest people on the planet.
Yeah.
And it is a send-up. Every episode is a send-up of a popular, famous documentary. So in the 3 seasons, amongst the shows, the famous documentaries that they make, that they parody, Grey Gardens, which is a famous one. Vice documentaries is an episode with Jack Black called Drones: The Hunt for El Chingon, which is a great episode. It's one of the best ones. The Bunker, which was the famous Clinton election team episode. The best one is probably a 2-part send-up in season 1 of the History of the Eagles documentary about a band called the Blue Jean Committee that is just superb. There's some great musical cameos in that throughout all 3 of the episodes, or all 3 of the seasons. In every episode are some just incredible cameos. A bunch of the shows were written or co-written by John Mulaney. They're very much his sensibility. So it's, all these guys that were, friends on SNL and the SNL writing staff. They send up Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which was a great documentary. Swimming to Cambodia, which was a great documentary. Stop Making Sense, the famous Talking Heads performance documentary. So these are basically just spoofs of all of them, but they're so well done.
We could do an entire episode of just the real ones.
Yeah, seriously. It's so well done. The last episode of season 3 was actually written by Tim Robinson, who we've talked about from Detroiters
Detroit
and whatchamacallit, the newer show that he
You
did.
can leave.
I think you should leave.
leave.
Which is still one of the funnier shows on streaming right now. I did that a while ago, so it's just great. I mean, definitely catch the drones episode if you want to cherry pick the drones episode and the 2-part Blue Jean Committee from season 1. The last episode, which was called Any Given Saturday Afternoon, which is a send up of A League of Ordinary Gentlemen, which is about the PBA tour and the guys that were big on the PBA tour at the time. So it's a fake bowling documentary. It's just it's a really, really smart, funny show. And Hader and Armisen are in, almost every one of the episodes, and they're so good. It's just it's a really, really good parody. I liked it a lot. So 3 seasons on Netflix, still fine. And I have one more update, if I may.
Yeah, please.
So just this past week was the end of season 5 of Billions. I'll say right now, if you haven't read the news or you watched the show and haven't watched it, spoiler alert, turn off if you don't want to hear this. But they ended the season great. And the biggest surprise to everything was Damian Lewis, who played Bobby Axelrod, the main protagonist or antagonist, really, on the show, has left the series after 5 seasons. So it was surprising. The way they ended it was surprising. But he's such a good actor. His wife passed away earlier this year. I didn't know that. Living in England. I think they said it was just too much for him, going back and forth. So hopefully he finds something else, which I'm sure he will soon. He's a great actor. But the guy they replaced him essentially with, who'll be the new bad guy in the show, was new to the series this year, which is Corey Stoll, who I love. Corey Stoll played Uncle Junior in Many Saints of Newark. So he's great and will continue being great. But it's just such a smart show. And I always forget that the show is consulted by Ben Mesrick, who wrote the series of books, which were turned into not so good movie. Well, one decent movie, The Social Network, was based off of his book about the early days of Facebook. And then the horrible movie based off of his book, Bringing Down the House, was the terrible poker movie
21.
with Kevin Spacey, which was
Good book,
blackjack movie, not poker. The books are great, and he consults on the show. So
wasn't Uncle
great
Junior
wrap
the
up to
bad guy in Ant-Man 2?
He was. Yep, Corey Stoll. He's an excellent actor.
was in
Oh,
House of
yeah,
Cards,
right.
too. He
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
House of Cards too, I think. Yeah.
Hey, I have a quick question for you guys. Did any of you see the 3-minute quick clip today for Peter Jackson singing the Beatles?
Oh my God, it looked amazing, didn't it?
Oh yeah, look it up.
I did not.
He's got a whole documentary, 3-part series coming out to Disney Plus. Like this, what these Beatles have like a week or something to record an album. And this guy has all this footage that's never been seen before.
Huh.
And
Wow.
Peter
Wow.
Jackson.
Isn't there a lot of-
7 hours of the Beatles footage that they filmed that had never been seen before, and he turned it into a 3-part series. It was it ends with him doing the rooftop concert.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
John, I thought you were gonna ask if anyone's seen the
screen test,
the screen test for the Robin Williams biopic.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable.
It's amazing. Like he's got the same the right lines in his face. Even the guy.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Like I would have bet a lot of money when the words were coming out of your mouth, you're going to be talking about the Robin Williams thing. But
there's a lot of good things, and then everyone should spit on the Home Alone trailer. Do not. See
that. Did you touch on the Lasso finale?
Ted Lasso. We haven't talked about the Ted Lasso finale.
Yeah, we didn't
Season
talk
2
about it,
finale was spectacular.
Yep.
I love
so good.
Anyone
So good.
And
I'm
don't like it is just doing it for clicks.
Well, the big complaint that I think I even mentioned myself at one point in time toward the beginning of season 2, and then I caught myself and said, screw that, was it's not really following a narrative. And then at some point in time, I'm like, we grew up on shows that didn't follow narratives. You're just being an asshole if you're like, it doesn't follow a narrative. Who cared? If it's a great show, why did it have to follow a narrative? But then by the end of season 2, it absolutely followed a narrative, which was even a better narrative than the first season.
It absolutely follows a narrative. And to your point, sitcoms generally don't follow a narrative. Sitcoms are usually very standalone. They live in the same universe and they'll reference, but it's not like a drama where it continues and keeps going. I mean, it's like this actually kind of does, and it's brilliant. And the 2 episodes that complete the Christmas one and the Beard one, which were actually just 2 bonus episodes because
they were written after the whole season 1 was. This whole season 2 was written.
Do 12 episodes, not 10, and so they went back and had outlined those and threw them out, and then brought them back and fleshed them out. Frankly, I thought the Christmas episode was absolutely incredible.
I love the Beard episode.
I love the Beard episode too.
Beard one too. I loved it.
The Beard episode was very, very themed off of the Scorsese movie After Hours, which I saw in the theater in like 1985 or 86.
I love that movie.
I thought it's one of those things. Again, it's like where expectations are so high.
Yeah,
it's like Seinfeld. When we were watching later episodes of Seinfeld, we're all like, "Oh, these aren't as good." If you watch any episode of Seinfeld right now, you'd be like, "Oh, I love this episode. What season it's from?" I don't know.
Well, so Howard, so Denise, my wife, said to me, I'm just not buying the evolution of the Nate character. I'm just not buying that this is who he is. But you got to pause and step back and say it doesn't matter. Like they're telling you a story here.
100% on that one. So, your wife couldn't be wronger.
She couldn't be wronger. Yeah.
They made him slow burn him into like the full asshole he became. I thought it was great. Well, I'll hang on. I got your wife on the other line.
And speaking of
speed dial.
And speaking of Easter eggs, like just all the Easter eggs that have come out since that final episode, like the fact that they shot him, Nate, with that was the first time that they literally blackened his eyes. He had no light coming from his eyes. The fact that conversation, which was incredible between the 2 of them toward the end of that episode, was the only time since the episode where he tells him to deliver the pregame speech in season 1. That's the only time the 2 of them were alone in a scene together. The fact that they show the picture that he got him as a Christmas gift in his home, but it was never in his, like all these little things that added up, and you're like, holy shit! It's so brilliant. But I don't know. Did you guys see him and Beard and Bill Lawrence, the showrunner, on Seth Meyers last week?
No.
Watch the clip on YouTube. They're on Seth Meyers and they have a storyboard.
It's fake.
Index cards magnet, and all of them are fake storyboards. They're like episode 2, Ted dies.
Right. Nate goes on British Bake Off. All right, we gotta wrap it up. I think we had an amazing show. This was great.
We did.
John, say goodnight.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Good night. I had a great time. Watch all the new Star Wars movies. They're great, and I'm standing by that.
All right, Howard, say goodnight.
Good night, everybody. Good to be back.
Sal, say goodnight.
Good night. Listen to the Sal and Bob Show, SalDemilio.com.
Bob, say goodnight.
Good night, everybody. Come see me October 22nd at the Traverse City Comedy Club.
Yeah.
Ooh, Ron,
nice.
Another amazing Wednesday night. Thanks again, boys, and see you next week.
Thank you, Ron.
I'm Jeff Dwoskin, hosted live from the
Thanks to our
Jeff Dwoskin show. Again, we talked about Squid Game, Rise of Skywalker, Macho, Untold Crimes and Penalty, documentary now, so much. Check us out on Fireside, on the Fireside Chat. Go to firesidechat.com. You can download the iOS app, and you can jump on stage with us as we start to stream every week. In the meantime, we will see you next time. And that has been another episode of Crossing the Streams. Join us every Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook and YouTube. Follow The Jeff DeWaskin Show on YouTube to be alerted every time we go live with your hosts, Jeff DeWaskin, Ron Lippett, Howard Rosner, Bob Phillips, Sal D'Amelio. We're all in the socials. Follow us. Listen to our podcasts. Live from Detroit, The Jeff DeWaskin Show, The Sal and Bob Show. Check them all out. And we'll see you next week and every week when we cross more streams right here. See you then.